Hello, everyone. This is going to be a lesson. I'm trying it on Zoom by myself. It's going to be a lesson on managing forces, what the forces feel like, and introducing you guys to the what I call the box, the ball, and the tee concept. So I'm going to share my screen. I got a little bit of work done before I started recording. Let's hope it works. There we go. Hopefully you can see the whiteboard. And I also learned if I spotlight, there we go. If I spotlight my mouse, you can see it. So this is a basic diagram of a concept that will help you understand how horses gain and lose their balance. This is quite an old concept I came up with years ago. It was what I felt. It was how I understood some of the basic biomechanics through the feel of the horse, and how it started to make sense how a quadruped with a long neck and a heavy head could gain and lose balance without really stumbling or falling over. So what this is a diagram of is a bird's eye view of how the different segments of the horse's spine work. And I think I came up with it as a bird's eye view because we sit, let me stamp it, we sit right about, let me get a different color. Let's do the yellow for the rider. Okay, so we sit right about there. Let's see if I can move it. It's a little off center, but basically right between our seat bones is somewhere there. Oh, I have two of them. Okay, hang on. There we go. Okay, so we sit right about here. It could be farther back. I'm trying to think. So anyways, let me continue with what this is. But I think the reason I took the bird's eye view is because we sit here, this is what we feel surrounding us. We're sitting kind of in the middle of the horse's spine. We straddle the mid to lower thoracic spine, which is right about here. So the T, which is an upside down T, this is sort of the line of force of the horse's cervical spine and how it influences the front limbs. So this line is referring to what we feel through the shoulders, which is the movement of the front legs. And this line is the cervical spine. Say from the pole, I don't have a little circle here for the head. We'll just assume the head is up here at the top. This is the line of the cervical spine. It transitions, even though I left space, it transitions into the upper thoracic. So the withers would be about here. And this, which I used to draw around, is probably better described as an oval kind of ball. And it describes the thoracic spine, which includes the rib cage tied into the sternum at the bottom, which would be about here, which is the whole thorax. So this would be the thoracic spine, cervical spine. These are the front limbs, the shoulders, how they're influenced by the cervical spine. And then we come back here behind the saddle to the lumbar. The lumbar would be about here into the sacrum, and it's a box because it includes the pelvic bones, as well as the hind limbs. So the whole hind quarter, which includes the lumbar spine, would be the box. Now, the reason these geometric shapes can be helpful is, and I'll try to draw this as I go, this describes the center line of force when a horse is in alignment and you're controlling rotation. It doesn't really show if the horse is on the forehand or perpendicular to the ground, but from the top, we're going to look especially at straightness issues, rotation issues. So what our goal is, I should say, our goal is to feel this line of force right here, even on circles and turns and in lateral work. It feels geometrically straight. From here to here, we feel the box through our sacrum. We feel the ball through our seat bones and our inner thighs. And we feel this area of the horse through our reins. So if I drew in how we feel these three shapes, let me try it with just a drawing tool. Here are our two seat bones. Oops. Here and here, let's say. And then our thigh bones go here and here. And our calves angle back a bit like this. So again, from a bird's eye view, this is the rider's torso balancing. We don't see the torso, it's just balancing on these two seat bones. I'll even put in little feet. Right, so again, kind of a bird's eye view. I have a bit of a crooked rider, it's okay. A bird's eye view, that would be a little straighter there, of the rider. Then the rider's hands are sort of here and here. And so what we feel through the reins to the hands, make a little mark there, through the reins to the hands, is we feel the forces, and again, my drawing is not great, bear with me, but here at the rider's sacrum, we feel the movement of the box. Sorry, let me change tools. So here at the rider's sacrum, we feel whether the box is sort of behind us. If we have a line of force, let me pick a different color. Let's do purple. What we're looking to feel would be, I'll draw again this, let me go a little bit smaller line too, is between our hands from here to here, we feel the straight line of force here. We feel if the shoulders are level, right? If they're equal through the feel of the reins. Through our upper thigh, we're kind of feeling this area of the ball between our upper thighs. Our lower thighs, our lower calves are kind of feeling the bottom of the thorax here and here. And then our sacrum is feeling all the way back to here, what the box is doing. So through here, we're connected all the way back here to the tail. So in a small area of our body, we're connected through our contacts to these various segments of the horse's spine. So we feel, and it's all very close, you can see the upper thigh, and actually this line would really be felt more here, what the front of the ball is doing. Let me see if I can erase this line. Okay, so through our hands, we're feeling this line of force. And we think of the reins being connected to the horse's mouth. If you just feel through the reins, that's a little bit of a mental assumption that we can only feel here where the reins are connected. As this changes through the whole shoulders and neck alignment, we actually feel it all the way to here through our hands. Very easy to feel. It's just a shift in your mental focus. And because if, like, let's say, and I'll draw this later, the blue line bends too much with the top of the cervical spine going left, which would push the bottom of the cervical spine to the right. We're going to get slack on this rein or a lighter feel, and we're going to get a heavier feel or a pull on this rein. So that's how through our reins, we feel whether this alignment is sort of square and straight in a T, or whether it's not. As soon as it's not, the feel of these reins, particularly in a snaffle, and if you have reins that have the little notches on them or grades, you can make sure your reins are equal in length, and then the change of feel in the reins on equal reins sort of speaks to what this part of the spine and the front legs are doing on the horse. Through our upper thigh, we feel if the ball is shifting left or right, out of alignment with the front legs to hind legs, or we feel if it's rolling. And I'll go over that again. I'll sort of try to show a diagram of how that works. So our upper thigh feels more pressure if the whole ball is shifting this direction, or more pressure here if the whole ball is shifting that direction. If the ball is, say, rolling towards the left on the top, then the bottom of the ball is going to push into our right calf. We're going to have more horse on the right calf and kind of less contact or less feel on the left calf. But at the same time, we'll feel a lift, an upward force on this right seat bone, and we'll feel the horse drop away or pull us down on the left. And I'll go over how that works through the whole diagram. But the feel of equal and level seat bones tells you it would also be equal pressure on both calf contacts. So that means we have to be in receiving mode, not doing mode. If we're actively pushing the horse, we don't feel where the ball is because we're only feeling ourselves. So our seat bones being level tells us the ball is level and not rolling, which is the rotation of the spine. If our seat bones feel equal upward force, that's rotation. But the inner thigh and the calves might feel the ball shifting left and right, which could be too much lateral bending, or it could be an alignment issue where the front end is shifting one way, so the middle and the hind end have to shift the opposite way. So the unequal feel in our contacts tells us how this force is being managed through the thoracic spine. Then again, with our sacrum, with the box is a box because it's kind of the steadiest. And if you imagine how these different shapes might, and I'll go over this, how they might align or misalign, the box is going to tilt or shift left and right. So if you have a rotation issue, you're going to have a high hip on one side, a lower hip on the other side. On the low hip, the hind leg will be striding deeper, more forward, and the high hip, the leg will be taking a shorter stride. You'll feel this in the sacrum as a rider because your sacrum will be pulled sort of to one side or the other. It won't feel easy to keep it in the center. So the movement of the horse, if it's sort of shifting your sacrum like this to the right, that would be more upward force in the box and a downward or falling force on the left side of the box. Sorry, on the right side of the box if your sacrum is being pulled this direction and it's not equal and steady. If it's shifting left and right, that can speak of an unsteadiness in the hind legs, which is the result of the whole spine being more an extension than flexion. So we're just going to take a quick look at how the horse can compensate through these different segments of the spine to perform, jump the jump, do the dressage test, track a straight line or a perfectly straight circle, and still be out of balance. So bear with me a little. I'm new at the drawing. So if we take, say, the cervical spine, because the concept of making a turn or a correct bend through a horse usually will lead people to do, oh, I think I might have to use a drawing tool. Actually, no, I'll stick with the straight lines. And let me go back to blue and the thicker line to demonstrate, let's say, the neck is going to be with the pole to the right, sorry, to the left. And that puts the base of the neck to the right. So what this is, how this is going to influence the shoulders will be, the shoulders will also tilt sort of this way. Move that down. Right, so you'll have, and we're still tracking a hypothetical straight line. Whoops. We're still tracking a hypothetical straight line here. So our line is going to go through this intersecting point. But when we overbend the neck, and I didn't make the line bent because I'm just going to show you the relationship of how the cervical spine works. It's an interlocking bone unit. So the forces, if the top end of the cervical spine is going too far to the left, then the lower cervical vertebra, force-wise, will be pushing too far to the right. That will influence the right shoulder to go outward. It could be lifted or pushing outward. We call it escaping through the shoulder. We call it bulging the shoulder. We call it bulging to the outside. A lot of times when a horse won't turn, if you pull the rein more on the left and they drift to the right, this is what's happening. On the inside shoulder, because the neck is no longer in a healthy alignment to the path of travel, the inside shoulder is going to go lower. The weight will probably, not always, but will probably go more to the left front leg than the right front leg. Some horses in a severe loss of balance will reverse that. So it's kind of a wild card which way the weight goes, but this shoulder will become lower and closer to the center of the horse's body, and this shoulder will become higher and move away from the horse's center of the body. Then the ball is also going to have to adapt. So let me see if I can just shift the whole ball in green. It will get pushed, let's see, over, here's our path of travel, here's our midline. So now the ball, hang on, let me undo that. So now the ball is going to be pushed over here. Okay, so we're going to have more on this side. I think that'll work. We're going to have more on this side and less on this side, which goes with the dropped shoulder on the inside. Then how does the box have to change? So now if I draw the box in red, it's going to, so here's still our center line, and the box now is going to have to, how do I draw this? Is going to have to counter the front end. So you're going to get a longer stride on this leg. I might not be able to draw it this way because the box loses its shape. So I don't know if, yeah, let me try this a different way. Hang on. Let me go back to this in red. So what will happen to the hindquarter is this leg will take a longer stride. The box will, oops, hang on, I need a new line. The box will tilt, yes, like that. This leg will take a shorter stride. And, whoops. Okay, so there's sort of our box. Oops, I don't want a new line. Delete that. Okay. So you're going to have a tilt of the pelvis. This side, whoops. This side of the pelvis is going to be higher and shorter. This side of the pelvis is going to be longer and lower. So if we go back to our drawing tool in purple, here's our path. Oops, let me pick a different color. It's pink. Okay, so our path of travel is going to be pink. Whoops. Hang on. Let me try that again. Okay, our path of travel is going to be, whoops, okay, it's not a very straight path of travel. Let's say it's that. So now the line of force in the body, here the line of force should be straight through the body. Here now the line of force is too much bend, right? Through the, internally through the body. So as a rider, here's our path of travel. Here's our line of force through the horse. So now as a rider, we get shifted. It's our path of travel. We're trying to stay here. So let's put that on our path of travel. But now this seat bone is going to have a lot of force. This seat bone has nothing. This thigh is feeling a lot of force, as is, oops, the calf, right? This thigh is being pulled down. So if you look at your own thigh bones, sorry, the angle of your thigh bones will be different. So this thigh will be closer and higher, and this thigh will be lower and farther back. You won't feel as much force on the calf and almost no contact through the lower calf. If we follow what we've all been taught, keep your seat bones equal and your stirrups equal, we're looking for this feeling on a whoops, hang on. We're looking for this feeling on a theoretically straight and well-balanced horse. That's how we're taught to ride. Keep your weight equal in your seat bones and keep your weight equal in the stirrups. That is true when the horse is in balance. When the horse loses balance, you're going to get a lot more force upward on this seat bone and this leg. And on this seat bone and this leg, you're going to be pulled downward. So the ball is sort of rolling this direction. So if we follow what we learned and tried to keep our weight equal in our stirrups and our seat bones, we just go into this imbalance with the horse. And it happens all the time, which is why a lot of saddle fitters believe they need to flock the saddle asymmetrically. This horse would overdevelop the back muscles on the right, and they would be pretty tight, and underdevelop the back muscles on the left. And it's very possible for a horse to have this habit, we call it a left-handed horse, to have this habit on both directions and on a straight line internally. The way we correct that is looking for this organization, what we feel on a straight line, on a turn, all the time, not sometimes, both directions. This is what happens a lot based on the old theory that horses track a circle with an internal shape of the circle. They don't need to, that's old science. So when we feel unevenness, and then let me go back to drawing what we would feel in the reins at that point too. So here's our hands are still in the same place relatively, right? If we stay straight while the horse loses their balance this way, then this rein, which is on the longer side, is going to be much heavier, much more force, and this rein is going to be more slack, more loose, right? Because internally, the body is changing. So if we stay straight, which this rider is doing to our path of travel, and to me, that's the only usefulness of having a marked out or a very accurate path of travel. A horse can stay very accurate, just like a one-legged person or a three-legged cat can walk a very straight or reasonably straight path of travel and be completely out of balance. So what we have to learn to feel is the internal alignment. That's why I added alignment as a spinal function. This is a misalignment of the spine. Okay, in the past, we used to think that's what bending should feel like, lateral bending. Since probably 1999, at the least, we know better because lateral bending has to be coupled with rotation. If we have this much lateral bending, the reason the front end and hind end counterbalance this way and the ball shifts this way, as well as kind of rolls that way. So the low side of the thorax becomes the left, the high side and the energy of the thorax pushes right, lifts on the right, pushes right. When we feel that as a rider, this is what we know is going on internally. The reason I started with all of the concepts on lateral movement and lateral work is because the prevalent concept of straight on a circle in our modern horse world today in 2020 is still more often this than this. Now, if we drew a curved path of travel, let's go back to our pink, for this horse, and I'm kind of running out of room, but if we drew, oops, I'm not very good at this, I'm getting better. Let's make it thicker. Let's delete that. Oops. Okay. Let's try this again. So if our path of travel is going to go, whoops, crap, this way. Let me undo. Oh well, I'll just leave it. It's a big hot mess, but you'll get the point. Let's say our path of travel is coming around and it's very tight. Okay, it's starting with canter pirouette. Just like And you can see why I use the analogy of a boat a lot with a horse. If we actually drew a hull around these three segments of the body, it is kind of boat shaped. We could think of it like a little wooden dinghy or a kayak, more like a dinghy because it's kind of wider behind, narrower up front, like a rowboat. But that boat could travel around the dock without tipping, tilting left or right, and it wouldn't be able to bend. It would still make it around the dock with this integrity of alignment and control over the rotation, which is the dorsal tips, again, going sort of left and right, which is like the hull of a boat, or what are they called? Anyways, the bottom of the boat has I just lost the name. Okay, more coffee. But that stabilizer of the boat, which is on the bottom, the keel, thank you. Okay, the keel of the boat sort of is like a spine at the bottom of the boat that goes down into the water. It's part of the boat's stability to control the rocking. When the boat is level and still, that keel is straight, which it can't be any other because it's an inanimate object, and it's not rocking side to side. It's minimizing the rocking. So this shape internally of the horse can track. If we think here we are in the center, our center, the middle of the horse, the middle of the thoracic, can track this line quite well while we maintain the front end alignment and the hind end alignment and the stability, the levelness of the saddle all the way around the path of travel. Here, our rider is stable, but the horse is not. Here's our path of travel, just a straight line. So the straight line and our balance over gravity helps us feel, I'm getting way too much lift or pressure on this seat bone. The horse is lifting this leg, pushing outward on this calf, making this leg, foot feel lighter or shorter in the stirrup. This thigh bone is going downward. This calf feels nothing. And this foot feels more pressure, more weight, right? So we try to put more weight in this stirrup. So you see the theory is not completely wrong. To keep our weight equal, we would need more weight in this stirrup. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're including the seat bone and the thigh to that end. So it's not the wrong idea, it's just not enough information. Where we make the change is right in here with our center line, which is the star, of the balance of our entire spine and skull over our two little seat bones, right? The legs are more a receiver of information, but they follow the rider's seat bones and center line. So if we were to correct this horse onto this line internally, we would resist on the right seat bone with our weight down the right leg into the right stirrup. We would not be falling. We would have a lifting sensation possibly on the left side to keep our seat bones equal to each other. In our hands, we would resist, hopefully not have to pull the neck this way, because we could easily create the same problem in the other direction by over pulling the rein. But this is why the reins also influence the shoulder. So as a rider, we can feel this right hind leg is nowhere near the right front leg. The right front leg is either feeling like it's to the outside or it's coming to the inside. This leg is nowhere in line with this hind leg, where here we could draw a straight line of force between each hind leg and each front leg on either side, plus a straight line of force down the center. So what we're trying to do with our reins is resist the neck going this way. Resist the shoulders going this way. Our upper thigh has some influence because right where the front legs are, right here is the cervical thoracic junction. So we do have some influence over that between our hands and our upper thigh. We're also helping with the levelness of our seat bones through how we distribute our body weight. So sort of between the seat bones and the upper thigh, we're addressing the upper thoracic, including the reins. So we need resistance on the right rein to disallow the horse's neck going that direction. So that would be the top of the neck. What it would feel like to us would be a little bit more, oh wait, I can't use that. I have to use this. It would feel, the front end would feel a little bit more like that to us, and the shoulders again like that. So because we can create a visible bend in the neck. So we would see the pole, the head, the nose going left, but the base of the neck down here would be pushing to the right. So to get that back in line, we would need, we would need resistance from this hand on this rein connected to the mouth, right? At that moment, this rein is not too useful. It's actually loose. So I'll draw it squiggly to this hand, right? Then that has to be coupled with more weight, likely to this seat bone, more weight down this thigh, resisting, right? More resistance and weight in the calf, right, into the foot, right? This same horse in this area would be shifting our seat bone a little bit opposite the line here. So because this is the higher side, this is the lower side, our sacrum in this instance would be pulled this way, right? We would feel ourselves being sort of turned left, lifted right. Those would be the forces we would feel in this particular coordination. So not only do we have to resist more on the right rein with the right leg, but we're also going to have to resist, if this is our sacrum behind us, we have to resist more on the right side of the sacrum, right? So all of that resistance, just by you as a rider actually trying to remain in this configuration, no matter what the horse does, we ride the ideal. So when a horse does this internally, and they can do that on a turn, they can do it on a straight line. And all I'm talking about right now is simply the rotation and alignment part of spinal functions. If we go into flexion, flexion would still feel like this. Extension has the side effect of creating this feeling. So if we're in extension, we're going to get a little bit of a wild card of this coordination, but it's going to shift from the left coordination that I'm diagramming to the exact opposite on the right. And everything down the right would change. So if the neck would feel like it goes this way, the shoulders would go this way, the ball would shift that way, and the box would reverse. Now, when they're in extension, it just creates a sense of instability that shifts left and right like this under our seat bones, because this internal configuration is happening not as drastically as I've diagrammed. It's smaller, but it's the same, and it's shifting very rapidly from the left to right side. That's the feeling of extension. We're kind of expecting, because extension is from the rider's perspective, a downward force of the back and the spine. But we don't really feel that. It does happen, but it's incredibly subtle. It can be felt, but it's subtle. The more obvious side effect of extension, which is hyperrotation, which would be shifting left to right between this configuration and the opposite configuration up to the right, that's what we feel when the horse is in extension. It's the most obvious. You just can't freaking miss it because it rattles the saddle side to side. You get a rocking effect in the saddle instead of a steady. So flexion always feels steady, easy to sit in the saddle. Then you might still have a rotation issue. But if they're in extension and you have a rotation issue, you're going to have a really unsteady saddle that also pushes you slightly more one direction than the other. So this is how we read the different uses of the spine and how we resist the various problems, because they come up in real time. It's a body, so there's no predictable, like what I'm showing is kind of a common natural imbalance with the horse falling forward and left, lifting and contracting up on the right side. It's pretty typical, so you'll find this a lot. If I have more complex coordinations of imbalance, then I might have this plus a shifting back and forth rapidly, high-headedness, right? So this might bend upward as well as over to the left. So those are the kind of signs and signals that we're looking for to know where and how we create resistance between our seat, which is the sacrum seat bone. Really, it's our entire axial skeleton. So from the seat bones up, from the base of the spine, the sacrum coccyx up, we have to control this vertical line of force that's going straight through in a vertical line from top to bottom, the horse's spine, the horse's body. So the control over our head, entire spine, and pelvis, balancing on our seat bones, is the vertical axis that we have to control, and that's really what our seat is. So if you have to start with your head and neck, you start there. If you have to start with your upper thoracic, you start there. If you have to start with your lumbar, you start there. If you can start with your seat bones and sacrum, that's ultimately the first line in our body. It's the front line of where the forces of the horse are entering our body. So as we refine our sensitivity, what we're doing by controlling the levelness, the levelness of our seat bones, the straightness and steadiness of our sacrum, is really controlling our entire vertical axial skeleton to help resist the changing forces of the horse losing his balance, even in ways that we can't yet explain or might be more complicated, we don't know about it. It's going to create uneven force. So the training we had that it should feel equal, level, and easy in the middle of the saddle is not wrong. That's the goal. But none of us ride straight horses or horses that are in perfect balance. What we're usually trying to navigate is something more along the lines of this, coupled with the effect of extension, or maybe ripping us down into long and low, being on the forehand. The more tricky combinations could be that the neck is in some degree of flexion, while the thoracolumbar spine back here is in some degree of extension. So a body is a body, it's a wild card. And when we're trying to create balance, thinking that we puppeteer the horse into the right use, we usually wind up with a side effect of complicated compensation patterns, where this is just a straightforward green horse falling forward and left. Okay, they have weight on their back, they have to learn the coordination of balance consciously, just like we do. And so falling forward to the left is pretty common, and it's easy to fix. You use your body, and the aids support the use of your body. So the primary thing I work on with a rider is, can you maintain the levelness of your seat bones, the straightness of your sacrum, all the way up through the top of your head, no matter what forces are coming into your body. When you can do that, you solve the problem in real time as it's happening. And you might feel something in your hands that doesn't make sense back here to the seat bones. But theoretically, on an internally straight alignment with stable and upright controlled rotation of the spinous processes, the long bones of the spine, dorsal tips of the spinal bones, when those two things are controlled and stabilized, guided into the more optimal function and use, you feel a broomstick straight line of force from the tail through the saddle all the way to the pole. You feel the alignment of the right front leg directly in front of the right hind leg. You feel the alignment on the outer ends of the left front leg directly in front of the left hind leg. It feels equal, level under your seat bones, through both legs. If you look down at your own thighs while you're riding, they should look symmetrical. And this is where our brains can get in the way, because brains are amazing, human brains are amazingly good at normalizing all kinds of imbalances because they're familiar. So a good visual, as you're learning to decipher whether you're actually straight or not, would be using the notch on your reins. You make sure your unstretchable leather or canvas reins are equal. Your hands are on the same place on both reins. That means this length is equal to this length. You can look at your own hands in front of you to see, are you putting one hand forward, one hand back, or are your hands equal? So like some people use a technique to put a whip under the rider's thumb while they ride. Let me see if I have a pencil and I'll demonstrate that. Okay, so to know that your hands are not giving and taking, because we're taught to take an equal contact. So what happens a lot is this hand on the rider will give to keep the feel of the rein lighter, and this hand of the rider will take backwards in order to keep the same feel on this rein. Well, that's all well and good, but it doesn't change the problem inside the horse. So if your hands are equal, and I think you can see in the little video, if you take like a whip or a straight line and you put it under your thumb while you're holding the reins, that just helps train you to keep your hands from moving forward and back, because we can easily play into this problem. It feels better to give the pressure on the heavy rein, and it feels better to take your hand or arm backwards to keep the feel on this rein. So when we're told to take a contact, that can happen quite easily. Here, if our hands are equal and our rein length is equal, then we know any discrepancy in the feel. If this rein gets lighter and this rein gets heavier, the horse is beginning this compensation pattern. If this rein gets heavier and this rein gets lighter, the horse is beginning the compensation pattern this way, in reverse. Then if we look at our own thigh bones while we ride, that's a really great tool if you're learning to feel rotation, because we might not notice that one seat bone is constantly up and one is lower because we're used to it on our horses. So you can look at your own thigh bones, which are connected to the seat bones. And if you have one like this, that looks farther forward compared to the other, or higher compared to the other, where you see this one looks longer or farther back compared to this one, then you can adjust to make them equal. When you make your thigh bones equal, you're now symmetrical over gravity. If that means you have more weight now on this seat bone compared to this seat bone, you might feel like you're going to fall off the right side of the horse. It's true. Our brain has to adapt. So you can play with it and see, how does the horse respond if I sit over here? If I move this leg up like this leg, or I move this leg back like this leg. Could do it either way. Then through our sacrum, which will also be felt maybe in the direction of our whole pelvis. So maybe your belt buckle here is getting pulled left because your sacrum is getting pulled right. Or the buttons of your shirt are getting pulled left because your back is being pulled to the right. So that's another way we could visually kind of look down and see which way is my belt pointed, or the button at the top of my pants, which is the front end of the sacrum. So if you look down at your own belt buckle and you see it's pointed a little bit this way, then your brain might have just normalized that imbalance in you. And when you straighten your belt buckle to the path of travel, you won't feel straight at first on a crooked horse, because what you're going to feel are all the different forces, what you're fighting against if the horse is not lined up to your path of travel. So the only difference between a curved line, turn, or a circle, and a straight line is, as this star here tracks, let's say we put it over here, it's tracking right, it should still be this internal alignment of force. If it's tracking right, you're having to adjust, adjust, adjust. And while, let me try to stamp that. So if I'm tracking the circle, the star is the middle of the rider, right? So the star is here. That means try this one. I'll try to stick with the same colors for the sake of clarity. So here's the star, which means the front end at this moment on the circle, oh, hang on. Need a thicker line. The front end right now, there's the line of the shoulders on the circle, but the neck, oops, hang on, there's the line of the shoulders on the circle, but the neck and head will feel like it's going to the outside. Like that. Then we have, I think I have to draw it. We have the ball equal, whoops, not the best drawer, equal around the rider, and that's what's actually tracking the circle. Then we have, yeah, I think I can use that and that. Then we have the box. Oh, hang on. Try that again. We have the box. I need to rotate that box, and I'm not sure how to do that with these tools. Okay, so let me delete that and let me draw the box. Okay, so the box is going to be here with the hind legs in a direct line to the front legs. So this one's not going in or out farther than the front legs. And the box is like that. So what's going to happen is this hind leg has to step deeper under the body. This hind leg has to step outward a little. And let me go back to, oh wait. Select this. I can make that a little bit longer just to show the way the forces are going. So from the inside front leg to the inside hind leg to the rider still feels like a direct line of force. From the inside or outside front leg to the outside hind leg should still feel like a direct line of force. The center line of the horse should still feel like a direct line of force. So now, as I track around the circle, this entire configuration, hang on, this entire configuration, and let me draw what we feel. Here between our reins, now you see why I call it a boat. Through our reins, our seat, our legs, right? We have this element feeling like this, but we have to adjust because first it's here. Then in the next moment, our seat is here. So the whole thing moves forward. Then our seat is here. We adjust. 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 So that's how this configuration can track around a curved line. Okay, I'm going to leave all my scribbles, and I think that's enough for this introduction of the box, the ball, the tee. If you guys have a better name for it, speak up, because I've been teaching this I actually taught it for years, then I quit teaching it. It was an intuitive understanding that took many, many years to explain, and then I've come full circle to it, going, it's actually a pretty accurate description of the relationship of the cervical spine, the thoracic spine, the lumbar sacrum pelvis, including the front legs, hind legs, and then this long neck has a big heavy weight on the end of it called a head. And then we sit here, just like we would sit kind of roughly in the middle of a boat if we're paddling a canoe around. So I use that analogy because the imbalances and all the problems we have are because internally, in some way, we're losing this alignment of the spine, which then changes the position of the front legs and the use of the hind legs, as well as what we classically are trying to battle against, our lower leg. It pushes the rib into our lower leg. But we're right up here, straddling the spine. We're right here to control the cervical spine with our hands. We're right here between our seat bones, our axial skeleton, our sacrum, our upper thigh, and our calves to really help resist the changes in the part of the horse's spine that really moves the least. It's not a lot of movement through each joint of the horse's spine. There's 54 vertebrae, I think. That's a lot. But through our contacts and by resisting imbalance in ourselves, we guide the horse to this alignment. So that's why I made it its own function, because this is a loss of alignment to me, which is going to be coupled with a rotation problem. Rotation is the rolling of the saddle we feel side to side, high side, low side. Alignment is when we say we have a dropped shoulder, a bulging shoulder, the hindquarter shifts out of your lateral move or is too far in your lateral move, or the croup is too far left or right, all of those things we describe, where we can't get the horse to come off of our leg, moving to bend around the inside leg into the outside rein, which would be this. This is very much a picture of a horse being very much away from the rider's inside leg and very much leaning on the rider's outside rein. I don't think that's something I want, but that's kind of what we're told. So we can create sometimes the imbalance listening to the words, but not understanding the mechanics, or what this lesson is today is the physics of the mechanical use. This is what it feels like. This is how they counterbalance or compensate in their own bodies as a quadruped for a loss of balance. So as a quadruped, they don't fall over as easily as we do as bipeds. They can carry this alignment or misalignment and use of their body for years and years and years. And then it just is unique to the horse. This might be the leg that goes lame first. Maybe the horse had so much weight there that they shifted it here. So you get a tight neck. And this is the leg that gets the foot that grows flat and the foot that grows high. That's describing this chronic use of the body that creates a lot of concussive force here and not enough concussive force here. So you have a high heel and a low heel. Now, depending, because it's a body, sometimes the flat foot, and I have a horse that does that because we added rotation of the cervical spine. But this is his flat foot and this is his high heel. But I still have uneven growth on both front feet. This could become a stifle or hock problem from underusing. This could be a suspensory problem from overusing. So it's not a guarantee. I'm not saying that this is because it's a body. It can change a lot. But those are where we get our suspensory issues from too much strain or overloading and flat feet. Or we can have joint issues from underuse as well as, so too much in extension or too much in flexion, underuse, rather than going through a healthy range of motion in the hind leg joints. So again, this is just an introduction to the box, the ball, the tee. It's easiest to understand if we look at it in the context of a straight line or a curved path of travel as an alignment or rotation issue. That's the easiest way to understand it first. It's also true with flexion and extension. And in lateral bending, when I just did all the work on proper lateral bending, I'm going to save that for another time. I'm not going to complicate it. This is kind of a long lesson, and it's a new introduction for some people to this concept. And I'm losing my voice. So I'm going to leave it here for now. And I'll save this, sorry. Let me save all this. And that should show up in this meeting recording. And I should be able to keep this diagram. I'll work on diagrams and save them to the whiteboard so that I can pull them up in meetings. Okay. Let me know if you guys have questions on this. This might be a really good topic to talk about. This is part of the unique teaching that I do. Again, it was an intuitive understanding at first that took many years. It always worked, but I didn't know why. And it took years to understand what I was actually diagramming. I knew it was the physics of a quadruped, how they counterbalance, but then it was a big epiphany to me to go, yeah, that's a very accurate description of the cervical spine, the influence over the front legs of the cervical spine, how the thoracic spine is used is like a ball. It can move like a ball. This moves either bending, which shifts the shoulders. You can think of it straight, or when you curve the line, the shoulders, front legs have to adapt as a counterbalance. The thoracic spine, the whole thorax sort of rolls like a boat or a ball. And then where the stability should be, which is the box, can be unlevel, right? This one is tilting low to the left, high to the right, which also puts this hip more forward and this hip more back, right? So have a hard time engaging if that's the configuration. So I will leave this for now and see you guys at the meeting. Okay, I'm going to stop here.